Hello, Detroit. It is a warm and sunny Thursday, April 13th in the Motor City. I'm Jer Stays, and your Daily Detroit is in two parts today. First, the Eagle has landed. A historic Eagle, that is. I went out to Waterworks Park this morning to get the story, where the Great Lakes Water Authority has installed a replacement stone eagle atop the Hurlbut Gate. Pictures, of course, are on our social media in our upcoming newsletter. You're going to want to check both of those things out. Second, a makerspace in Ferndale is expanding. You know, a makerspace is a great way for people who want to get together and create something interesting to make it happen. Matt Arnold, president of I3 Detroit, is in studio to share the details. A reminder that our project is supported by our members. You can join us as a one-time thing at buymeacoffee.com/dailydetroit or become a monthly sustaining member at patreon.com/dailydetroit. Thanks to Bob, Brian, Michael, Aaron, and Mark. You are all awesome. All right, let's get started.
Hi, I'm Doug Atkinson. I'm a facilities project manager with Great Lakes Water Authority.
Doug, you joined us on the show a little while ago, and now the Eagle has landed. Listeners, we are standing in Waterworks Park next to the Hurlbut Gate, right there on East Jefferson, and the Eagle has landed. This is a beautiful piece. Let's talk a little bit about what happened today and what is this project about?
Sure. This is really the restoration of the Hurlbut Memorial Gate, which is a monument Chauncey Hurlbut funded way back in the 1880s. And it's gone through a couple repairs, renovations, but in 2019, the Eagle was hit by lightning. It shattered. And the Eagle is really it's the hat on top of the monument. And when that came down, everybody was very sad, and we got to do something about that. So Great Lakes said, let's get our monies together and let's get the thing repaired. So we got Quinn Evans as our historic architect. We work with them. We've done a lot of work inside, outside the monument. And the stone was carved out with Metropolitan stone. They did it based upon the old Eagle. They pieced together the old Eagle bit by bit, cemented together, and then they scanned it. And from that scan, they got a gigantic piece of Indiana limestone and kind of a laser machine. The last several months, back and forth every day, slowly cuts away until you get that Eagle. And then at the end, I won't say at the end, but the artisans from the stoneworks, they go in there and they hand chisel in all the fine detail. So it's very cool. It starts from a block of limestone to kind of what you see up there today.
Well, and the whole gate has gotten kind of a glow up. Can we talk about the project in general?
Yeah. It really got a good washing last summer. We spent 3 months washing it, and literally with sprinklers. We had lawn sprinklers and all kinds of sprinklers, just putting water on it, getting all that soot, 130 years of soot off of that thing. You can see today, take a drive down Jefferson, you'll see it. It's fairly sparkly right now. We have still more work to do. We've got the light fixtures are being recreated, restored, and we've got some concrete, some site work. And then lastly, we've got the bronze bust of Chauncey Hurlbut, who this is sort of, this is in kind of his memory.
Let's talk about that bronze bust for a second, because as I look, I see the kind of the pillar there in the middle of all this beautiful carving. Real quick, from your memory, who was Chauncey Hurlbut and this bust? This is something that has been gone for a long time.
Yeah, it has been gone for a long time. I think since the second or third year, it disappeared. And I think maybe the family, but we don't know what happened to it. We weren't around. So Chauncey Hurlbut, he was a great benefactor of the city. He was on the Water Board Commission, the fire department. He kind of got the city going back in the 1860s. And when he passed away, he put his whole estate into a trust and said, I want something fancy for the Waterworks Park, which he helped create. He created this kind of celebration of water, and that's what Waterworks Park was. It was ponds and lakes and swimming pools, and it was all about fresh water. Detroit's coming on board now. They're going to be a big city, and we've got a water system. So Chauncey really spearheaded where Detroit is today in terms of fresh water and clean water.
And so that listeners know, and I've gotten a couple of questions of this already on social media, this is a very active site as far as this is actually where the water comes through and gets pumped, right?
Yeah, it literally comes, there's an input right there on Belle Isle. It comes under the river, and it comes popping up right here. From there, that's raw water. It goes through a series of filters, pumps, it gets clean, chemicals, and then it gets pumped out from here. It doesn't feed all the city. There's 5 water plants. This is just one of 5. but it does feed a lot of this area downtown, the east side, and it's our largest. So it's got capacity, unbelievable capacity. And I won't go into it, but when we had the Lake Huron went down last summer, all the other plants picked up the capacity, so we never noticed really that one of our plants was down.
What is special about all of this for you personally is, you can hear the beeps in the background. They're taking the straps off of this eagle. Like, how do you feel about it, and what does this mean for you personally to do this project?
It's a win-win for the community and for Great Lakes Water. This is the monument. It sits in the neighborhood. It really was a neighborhood monument. It got people to the park, and it sits there all day. Nobody really notices it, but now that it's getting kind of sparkled up again, people stop by and look at it, and they say, oh, Waterworks Park, what's that all about? And hopefully there's a kind of acknowledgement that what Great Lakes Water does, and what the importance of having a good water system is. So to me, it's like, don't let our old stuff fall apart. Embrace it, celebrate it. The community built this to begin with. Give it back to the community.
Well, and art can really help a community, feel stronger about it. Stuff like, as we're looking here, I can see Pewabic right there. So many, beautiful church over there. And for me personally, this means a lot because this is the neighborhood that a lot of my family came from. So yeah, it's so great to see this kind of thing. And so what's next? What's the schedule for this gate as far as projects?
We're pretty close to the end here. The eagle, they're going to put, some of the heads fell off during the lightning break, the lightning strike. The statues around it, they're patching those up. The new light fixtures or the restored light fixtures will go on within a month. And then we're going to slowly back out of the site. We got new concrete going in there, clean up the landscape, and then it's just going to be a quiet piece of the park for the moment.
Joining me here in the beautiful North End studio is Matthew Arnold, longtime listener, friend of the show, member, and president of I3 Detroit, among many other things that you do in the community. Matt, welcome to the studio. It's so good to see you.
Well, thanks, Jer. Yeah, wonderful to be here.
Yeah. I mean, we've known each other for quite a long time, just so people know. You remember back in the University District days.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I have wonderful memories of that.
Yeah. So you are now president of I3 Detroit, and I3 Detroit has always been fascinating to me ever since it opened back in 2009. I think it provides something very cool to the community in a nonprofit way that's really from the grassroots up. So for those who don't know, what is I3 Detroit?
Imagine a workshop where you have a wood shop, metal shop, electronics lab, laser cutters, 3D printers, etc. But it's all volunteer, not for profit. It's for the community. And we have about 184 members, all of whom provide the dues that it is almost completely funded by. And so we encourage people from the community to come out, for example, on Friday nights for open shop. You don't have to be a member. It's not like a gym membership where you pay as basically a customer to use the gym. This is different. Like, you can come in and use it for free on Friday nights. But if you want to be a member, that's more like being a janitor or a custodian. And so these are like dedicated volunteers who make this thing work as a 501c3 nonprofit.
Now, I've heard of spaces that are makerspaces, but they're more of the for-profit model. And honestly, they didn't seem to really take off.
Yeah, that was around for a while. There was one in Allen Park. Nationally, that business model just didn't manage to work because they didn't have what you might think of as a community. So people did treat it as a thing where they were just a customer. They went in and there were employees there who were paid to keep the machines running. But there wasn't any community cohesion. They weren't a group. There was no sense of, this is us.
So this is the kind of thing that really is best as a community-focused endeavor, right? I mean, so many things are focused on, well, can it make money or is it a business? And there is a place for that. But when it comes to this, it almost feels more like a co-op.
Yeah. The co-op model is basically what it is, where each person has something that they are really hoping to get from, first off, having a place with which to build their projects, but secondly, having all the creative ideas to bounce off of all the other people who they're forming a community with.
And how important are you finding that as, we've emerged from the pandemic and things like that, to be able to have those connections still, whether they're in person or virtually, to have that I3 Detroit community that clearly has stuck together, because that's a lot of members.
It was wonderful. And over the lockdowns, certainly there was a lot less activity, and yet everybody still kept paying their dues, whether they were coming out or not. And we did a lot of virtual meetings for a long time before they became back to being hybrid. It didn't deter anybody from saying this thing's got to continue to persist after we all come back, and it's got to still be there.
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful thing. And you have some news to talk about as far as an expansion.
Oh, yeah. It's wonderful. We actually expanded to fill the entire building we're in. We were 8,000 square feet. We got another 7,000 for about 15,000 total.
And that's in near downtown Ferndale?
Yeah. You know where there was Chisano Coffee at Wanda and 9 Mile?
Okay, so just a little bit to the east between Woodward and 75.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you make a square and the top is 9 Mile and the bottom is 8 Mile, it's like right in the center there on Wordsworth.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. And what kind of things are people going to find there? Now, I've visited, but kind of pre-expansion. Let's talk about some of the areas that you have, because it's not just like, hey, here's a table saw, bro.
Oh, yeah. And people can find more information on our incredibly elaborate and thorough wiki, i3detroit.org.
Because, of course, you have a wiki. I feel like this is the kind of group that have a very in-depth wiki.
Very in-depth.
So what are a few of the examples that are interesting to you?
Lately, I really want to highlight the jewelry zone, which has been incredibly active, and that's been a wonderful contribution to the new expanded area of the space. It includes ceramics and even a glass slumping kiln.
A glass slumping kiln?
Yeah, absolutely.
What does one do with a glass slumping kiln?
You put glass in it and it slumps. Yeah, so we have this incredible welding zone, I think is a huge highlight. The metal shop, and actually there's a Haas mill in there. There's an entire Haas mill, which is the size of a minivan.
So what does a Haas mill do? Because when I think of Haas, I think of Pas, and I think of like Easter candy.
It's very much like what all of my relatives used to use in the old tool and die shop over on Groesbeck that I grew up with. If you ever were in a standard Detroit area tool and die, it is a computer-controlled milling machine that will mill out steel or aluminum into molds.
Super cool. So what do people use that and some of these tools for? Like, what are some of the examples of projects?
Oh, I was involved in a company that we made Minecraft action figures. On site, there was plastic injection molding that's at i3 Detroit as well. And so the molds for the action figures would be made in that Haas mill. They'd be put into the plastic injection molding machines, and then that pumped out plastic action figures, and then I wrote the software to take your Minecraft skin and then print it out, cut that on a robot, and wrap it around the action figure.
So I will fully disclose here that if you've looked on Instagram and seen a 5-foot tall Daily Detroit shield, you are talking or listening to the man who made it. And I'm thinking you made that at i3 Detroit.
I did, on the laser cutters. We have actually, just in the past couple of years, a new, even more up-to-date laser cutter of the many that we have that I'm very proud of.
And so the laser cutter, you can do wood with it, but what other things can you do? Like, what kind of things do people do?
There's an entire business that just makes leather D20s. That 20-sided die you use in Dungeons & Dragons, they make a giant one out of leather as a dice pouch that you can just carry around your dice in that has all the numbers engraved on the sides of it. So there's leather. There's fiberboard. You can make stuff out of acrylic, panes of acrylic that you can laser cut or engrave. Even with the new laser, if you hook it up to oxygen, you could cut through paper-thin steel.
Really?
Yeah.
That's super cool.
One of my favorite things was to take a block of rubber, engrave into the rubber, attach that to a wooden handle, and now I have a stamp.
That is cool. So what are some of the things that have gained a lot of traction lately with these different stations?
In addition to the jewelry zone, which they're giving classes fairly regularly these days, there's the paint shop. The paint and chemistry zone is new because thanks to our expansion. The 3D printing lab is great. We're moving our media lab, which has free access to Adobe Illustrator, into a larger section. We're about to build out some more walls on the original side of the space for a gigantic sewing zone.
Whoa, that's super cool. Now, part of this is that you've been able to expand, and you've been able to expand a bit because of a grant from the MEDC, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. How big of a deal has this been for you? How did this kind of all come together?
Oh, it really helped a lot because this was like late 2019. We got a grant for $50,000 from the MEDC. And that was just to do things like actually physically pick up that Haas mill the size of a minivan I mentioned a minute ago and get it to the other side of the building. I mean, just that costed a lot of money. And then the ability to fit out and properly equip areas of that space with things like a giant dust collector and so forth. The purchasing of new equipment, the ability to completely fireproof the intervening wall, all of these took that much money and more.
And so when it comes to being a volunteer-led organization, it's not like you have employees running around doing this stuff. This is all community-led, and wherever possible, people who are members are helping, right? Am I right?
That's all the workforce that we have. There's no employees and there's no customers. There's just us, and we pay the dues to keep our hackerspace afloat. And anytime somebody comes in on Friday nights, we give them a tour and let them use it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you've got an event coming up to celebrate this.
Oh, yeah. Very excited about this. On May 20, we're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony at 2 p.m. with representatives from the MEDC. And we're going to run till about 4 p.m. So we're going to be able to show people demos of, hey, we'll cut some leather key fobs for you on the laser cutter. We'll cut out some decals on the vinyl sticker plotter. You know, maybe we'll weld you a nameplate with your name metal etched or engraved in it. Things like that.
Well, it's so cool because you'll get the chance to meet some people that it's not just about making the thing and going off. And it's very different than co-working in my mind. Because a lot of times, yes, there is an idea of co-working and people collaborating, whatever. But when it's a community space where the community owns it, it's more of we're going to bounce ideas off of each other. We're going to raise each other up together.
Yeah, when I go in there, I don't think to myself, well, you know, I'm going to go get this project done and get it over with. There's never a I wish I could get it over with feeling when I am in that building at any time. I mean, even when I'm president, I do a bunch of work there that I don't have to do. But we're there together and we're having a great time.
What are some of the projects that you've worked on?
Well, I actually made an entire board game on the laser cutter. I made a bunch of prototypes of it for years and got that published and produced, professionally produced. Another one was the Daily Detroit sign. That was all made out of medium density fiberboard on the laser cutter.
Super cool. Super cool. Well, if people want to know more, what can they do?
Go to i3detroit.org. That's our main mode of contact. Please feel free to contact me at contact@i3detroit.org. Happy to talk to you anytime. And even if you can't come out to our open house, please come out and visit us on a Friday night at Wordsworth Street and Wanda in Ferndale.
All right, thanks, friends, so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. I am Jer Stays. Devin O'Reilly should be in for the Big Friday show. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk tomorrow.